We also said in our learning targets that we would use strategies or scaffolds to help support our reading and comprehension of the text. And so you guys have seen this strategy before. It's our first read nonfiction strategy. We're going to go over how you're going to use this strategy as you read before we move into our directions. So let's take a look. First, you're going to notice. Notice the general ideas of the text, what the text is about, who is involved. And we know that we are focusing specifically on point of view. And so when you do your first read today, I want you to pay attention to or notice who's telling the story, whose point of view for each paragraph. So you're going to write in the margins next to each paragraph who's telling the story, whose point of view for that paragraph. And I'm going to model this for you today because remember, I'm going to gradually release you. All right, you also are going to annotate. Let's look at our annotations. You're going to annotate by marking vocabulary and key passages you want to revisit. Let's look at our annotation marks that we started at the beginning of the year, and we're going to fine-tune those a little bit today to meet the needs of the complexity of this specific text. So today, I want you to focus in on the memorable parts of the text and the difficult parts of the text. And so we've always used our exclamation points for parts of the text we love, but we're going to add if we have memorable parts of the text that really connect with us. We're like, oh, because remember, she's telling a story from her personal experience. So you'll have those moments that'll touch your heart, and you'll put an exclamation point next to those. You may also have portions of the text that are difficult for you. You may not understand exactly what's happening. If that happens, I want you to place a question mark next to that part of the text, indicating, hey, this part is difficult, I'm struggling, I have questions here. All right, let's move on to connect. You're going to connect ideas within the text to what you already know and what you've read before. And so if you get to a portion of the text in which you're like, hey, I had a similar experience, you're just going to write a couple of notes in the margin, making connects to that portion of the text. And then last but not least, we know that the respond portion of our strategy is where we answer our comprehension questions after we read our text. And we'll actually go into that in more detail later in our lesson. So let's review our directions before we get started. Follow along with me as I read. Directions. Step 1, read the anchor text, An Invisible Thread. While reading, use the first read nonfiction strategies to annotate the text. For those who need the audio is available in our online digital platform for those who need additional scaffolds or support. And then we'll come to our comprehension check after we read. I did provide an additional support for those who may need it. If you're struggling with reading this text and summarizing, then I want you to write a brief summary sentence next to each paragraph of the text while you're reading it. And so, who is this text is about? What's happening? Who's involved? You're going to write a sentence next to each paragraph to help you with your overall comprehension. Okay. Do I have any questions before we begin? Let's get started.